So we have immortal warriors who can't really die and heal almost instantaneously, who want to do good and stay off the grid at the same time. It sounds like a comic book to me. Hi guys, my name is Maria Park and this is Approach to Nerd, and in this episode we are reviewing the Netflix original movie, The Old Guard, based off the comic book The Old Guard by Greg Rucka. And Greg Rucka is a DC writer who's done a lot of different properties, especially Batwoman. The movie was directed by Gina Prince Blythewood, and for the most part I really enjoyed this. Now, this is going to be a spoiler review. I will not be going verbatim on the plot of this movie because if you're watching this, then you've already seen it. So that would basically be me just recapping it back. I am going to ask questions and talk about things that I liked and things that I thought maybe they could improve on in the movie. But yeah, for the most part, it's not going to be verbatim. So let's just start with the technical aspect of the movie. So one thing I did after I watched this movie, I wanted to know what people thought about the technical aspects. Not really the plot, because I really tried not to watch other reviews before I do mine, because I don't want to be tainted or have somebody else's opinion burned in my brain and then it might accidentally come out of my mouth. So I don't ever do that. But I do listen to technical aspects because I have a film degree and I just really want to know. So one of the things that people were saying is that they did not like the fact that in this movie, the action scenes were kind of reminiscent of movies like The Matrix and John Wick, and that there was shaky camera work everywhere, and it was almost like it wasn't like thought out, very well in terms of production. I kind of disagree with that only because, yes, there was shaky camera, which happens when it probably had some handheld shots. But I have a condition called MDDS, which is a form of vertigo where I feel like I am rocking all of the time on a boat. It is an inner ear problem, and it makes it very difficult for me to watch anything, video games, TV shows, or movies that have really horrible shaky cam syndrome. That's what I call it. I had no response to this whatsoever. I was not have any discomfort whatsoever. It did not trigger any attacks in me whatsoever. So I think people are just really used to that polished, choreographed, fighting style that Hollywood is now so infamous, in doing. But I actually don't really enjoy him for the most part because it looks too polished and too choreographed. I want to have an action movie where I don't see the punches coming, where it looks like you're beating the hell out of me. And this delivered. It had everyone fighting all over the place. Yes, there were parts where they were passing off guns. So one person would kick somebody else would shoot him, somebody else would flip him, somebody else would break someone's neck. But that's just called teamwork. I mean, these people have been immortal for centuries, so they've worked together a very long time. So that's completely believable to me. So this shaky cam and the technical aspects of that and the camera shots, both close-ups, both, long shots, over shoulder shots, all of that stuff was fine for me. I had no problem with that. Also exposition. We have Niall's character, who is the latest immortal, who of course has a lot of questions. She wants to know why she can't die. She wants to know, who these people are. How long have they been afflicted with what she thinks is like a defect? And yeah, you're going to have these questions. I mean, I have 1,000,001 questions when my Xfinity bill is too high. I could be on the phone for an hour getting this broken down for me because I need to know. So imagine if somebody slit my throat and then I came back from it. Yeah, I would want to know that. So her asking these questions actually for me made it more authentic because there's so many movies where they just talk to the audience and they say, well, this is what we are and this is why we don't die and this is what this is. It's almost like it's made just for us and for our benefit, not the actual characters who probably already know what's going on. So I have no problem with how they used her for the exposition or explanation of what's going on with these guys. But yeah, so the plot itself, you've got Charlize Theron, who is an action star queen and makes mostly every movie she's in very enjoyable, even if she's in them by herself. She stars as Andy. In her previous life, she was known as Andromache of Scythia. When I looked Scythia up, there were nomad race of people who pretty much existed during the 7th era of 7th BC to 3rd BC. So she's a nomad. We don't know exactly how old she is, but she even implies in the movie that she was worshipped as a god at one point. So she is the leader of this group of pretty much immortal soldiers, small army of 5 right now. And she's completely disillusioned by humanity. She feels like no matter how much good they do, it doesn't make a dent in all the evil and horrendousness that is humankind. And, it was very believable because if you look at our world today, I totally could see that. And it takes a lot for her to realize throughout this movie. And she does see later on in the movie by a source that you wouldn't think would be the person that really shows her who she is, that it's kind of like a pay it forward effect. So you save this person today and they go on to save a group of people, or you save this person, they go on to cure a group of people, and vice versa. It's a pay it forward thing. So the good you do today it's not going to have immediate gratification. And I guess for me, if I were to want to question anything in regards to that, is that you've lived for centuries. At this point, you should understand that instant gratification is not a thing. But, she's kind of damaged. I mean, she met another immortal. It was the first ever immortal that she's, met beside herself. And her name was Quinn. And their entire relationship reminded me of Xena and Gabrielle from, Xena Warrior Princess. Except for instead of being an Amazon and a peasant girl, they were a nomad in Mulan. But I mean, there's so many moments that you saw them fight together, and even when they were captured and were about to be persecuted and, basically burned alive, that moment was so reminiscent of Xena and Gabrielle about to be, crucified by the Romans, that it was almost like a remake of that show. And I thought that was interesting. But yeah, I really enjoyed, Quinn's character, and I also enjoyed that they seem to have opened it for her to come back. And I'll try and get to that in a minute too, to make sure that I get some of the other stuff out first. So let's talk about Copeley. So Copeley is a character played by actor Chiwetel Ejiofor, who did recently, that I'm trying to go by his resume. Recently, he played the Lion King's Scar in the 2019 remake. And his character was kind of treacherous like Scar, only had more of a conscience. His character's wife died from ALS, and the grief made him make very immoral choices. So he started studying Andy's group. And Andy's group consists of Andy herself, an adorable LGBT couple who were both soldiers or warriors in their respective countries, who basically fought each other over different beliefs, and then ended up being soulmates. And their names were Nikki and Joe. And then you had Booker, and Booker was he's probably the second oldest in their immediate group. And he is the one that reaches out to Copeley, and Copeley, having had hired them previously, like years before, I guess, for a CIA covert operation, and them doing exceedingly well, reaches out to hire them to rescue some children that were kidnapped from a school in Africa. Well, it was a ruse, actually, and he really just wanted to have proof by video that if they got shot and came back, that he wasn't crazy, they were really immortals. Now, it's interesting that he took that risk, because he had a theory from pictures and all the stuff that he traced from them that that's who they were, but he wasn't 100% certain. So if they had shot him and then he'd just be dead, then he essentially just orchestrated their murders. So I guess I have a problem with that. But luckily they're immortals, but that means he got the proof that he needed. And then he went and approached a pharmaceutical mongrel called Stephen Merrick, who's also British. And it always amuses me, especially being half British, that they always make the British characters the villains in the American movies, because he is, of course, the main villain. Copeley is sort of a villain, but he has a conscience, because when he realizes that when he went to Merrick puts bottom line and money above human life, he was basically going to torture them to get the results he wants and then lock them away so his competitors couldn't have them. That's when Copeley kind of realized, okay, maybe I messed up. But yeah, so Merrick's character is pretty a-holy, and Copley's character is kind of a-holy, but with an actual conscience. So I like the fact that, we got to see two different versions of somebody who wanted to exploit their gift. We had the one whose wife died of ALS and he wanted to desperately save the rest of humanity from suffering. And then we had the one that just wanted to make money. So both sides are represented in this movie. I thought that was interesting. But Booker makes a deal with Copley behind Andy's back to basically offer them all up as science experiments to be studied and prodded and tortured to get results, to see, because he wants it to end. He wants to die. He reveals that he had two sons and that he lived long enough that everybody he loved died, because they can't die. At least they don't die until it's their time to die. So yeah, his character is very complex. He's not evil, but he did betray and backstab the closest people to him because of personal reasons. And so, yeah. So this brings me to my first question, though. So Booker was working with Copley, and they went on their first mission and realized it was a setup. And so this was around the time that they split up. Andy was going to find their newest member, who is Niall, who I will discuss in a second. And then the others were going to find Copeley. And they have this safe house in France that they were staying at. It's really an old church. And they get found there. But my question is, why did Andy not think it was suspicious that two of the members, our little favorite couple, Joe and Nick, were taken? But they left Booker in a chair with his intestines or guts or whatever stabbed and ripped open and shot to just bleed out, knowing that he is also immortal and can just heal. Why would they not have taken him too? And why did she not think that that was weird? So that's something that I had a question about. I mean, it really messes with me in the continuity of the entire film. When stuff like that happens, I did have to point out the stuff that it's like, wait, what? Because that should have been a red flag. Why did they not grab you when they want people like us and they just left you here? That doesn't make any sense. So speaking of Niall is the sunshine of the group. She's the young one. She is a young Marine stationed in Afghanistan who basically dies after going to question these women about a terrorist and finding him hiding out in their house or their space. And while she shoots him and then tries to stop the bleeding because they wanted to question him and have him alive, and he took the opportunity to slit her throat with a knife that he had hidden while she was trying to save him. But instead of dying, she wakes up not only recovered, but without any scar. And so everyone in her unit, everyone in the barracks on the base are all treating her like she has leprosy and pretty much distancing themselves. And her superiors are deciding to ship her off to Germany for more testing, which is interesting, which means that just shows us there's another branch of the military out there also testing on weird things that they don't understand. Because at this point, nobody knows that Niall is an immortal. So it couldn't be Merrick's people, because Merrick's people would have already had her. So that's just what it is. But I did love the whole interaction with Andy and Niall, because they, to me, were I feel like Niall was the Quinn replacement for Andy. Niall is sassy. Niall did not come without a fight. She stabbed Andy. She fought her on the plane, which was a very enjoyable scene. But it was so funny the way Andy had to keep hurting Niall and having her come back from the dead or healing to get her to understand that no, she's not on drugs, no, she's not hypnotized, and no, this is real life. You really are immortal, and you really can heal, and you're not going to die until it's your time. So yeah, I did like that. And as for the exposition, I didn't have a problem with them using Niall to explain anything. I just felt like that was a very natural response to somebody who is having she's having her entire life basically taken from her to go with a group of strangers because they're like her. I mean, that's just it. To me, that just seemed like a fitting response, to be very, questioning of who these people are and how does this stuff affect me and what do I do now? So I did like I like Niall's character a lot. I thought that she was the yin to Andy's yang, where, Andy is very disillusioned by humanity. Niall is not. She's still young. She's still like, there's so much we could be fighting for. There's people we can be fighting for. Niall basically was there to remind Andy of what she is and what she's accomplished, even though she doesn't realize that until the end of the movie. So I do like their relationship. So Copeley's 180 after Andy gets shot and realized that Andy is no longer immortal. We kind of suspected it because she got stabbed from the first attack where Booker was left behind, and they took Joe and Nick. We see she gets stabbed in the shoulder and it doesn't heal. So, and for her, that's already a warning, a warning that she may be losing her immortality, which comes ironically after they explained to Niall that yes, we can die just when it's our time, and you'll know it when your wounds stop healing or are slower to heal. And it seems like Andy, being the oldest, hers just went really quickly because it didn't even attempt to close. So at this point, by the end, when they're trying to break out of the lab, her wounds she gets shot and they're not, it doesn't heal at all. She actually has to have antibiotics and be stitched up. But she's still badass. But yeah, Copley's 180 was interesting. My second question actually is to do with him. So when Booker pretty much Booker and Andy go to apprehend Copeley and try and find the lab to save, Nikki and Joe. And Booker actually shoots her. Well, when Merrick's men get there, because Merrick, he owns an entire, military in the pharmacy for some reason, they are taking them away, and Copeley actually says, this is not what I signed up for, this is inhumane, science is science, but this is cruel. So they knock Copeley out. But then when Niall shows up and he's taking her to the lab, basically to save the friends, he's using his access card to get into the building. So you mean to tell me that this Merrick guy, who's supposed to be so flipping smart, he left his access to the labs and the buildings intact? I don't know. That was very strange. So I had a question about that too. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Once you get hit over the head and knocked unconscious because you're not on the team, you get all of your team, privileges revoked. And they didn't do that. And that pretty much opened the door for all of their plans to blow up in smoke, basically, and for almost all of them to be killed, except for the doctor. I think they just knocked her out. So, yeah, I did have questions about that. But, yeah. Outside of that, I mean, I just really enjoyed this movie. I like that Booker's punishment at the end of the movie was to be alone, because that's what he dreaded the most, and that's why he betrayed them in the first place. He wanted to find a way to end it. And now he has to spend 100 years alone. But as I promised you with Quinn, I was going to talk about Quinn. Quinn is not under the water drowning over and over again, we believed that she was doing. Like they were seeing when they were dreaming. They were seeing her just reviving and drowning to the part where you're going to go crazy for 500 years if that kept happening to you over and over and over again. She's actually in Booker's apartment in Paris, saying she was happy to meet him, which tells me that Quinn has a score to settle with Andy for not finding her. Because Andy essentially did give up after a while when she couldn't figure out where she was, which I wonder why they didn't think to do like underwater sonar. They find so many things underwater with sonar. I don't know why they didn't think to do that in this. I mean, it's 2020, but it's another question. But I like that they're incorporating Quinn, and I like that they went back to Copeley. The team went back to Copeley, and Copeley is going to be pretty much their point man now, who covers their tracks and sends them on the legit jobs. That is his new role. And I thought that was very appropriate. I guess he didn't get punished as deeply and as personally as Booker was, because Booker was one of them. And Copeley is, I guess, a flawed human who was just dealing with his wife's, the grief of his wife's death very poorly and made very horrible choices. So he's going to be their biatch and find them jobs and erase all traces of them being there. And I think going into the sequel, if we get a sequel movie, that is a very, very cool way of starting off that team. I just wonder how Andy is going to fit into that, because she's not immortal. If she gets shot, she's dead. I mean, there's no coming back for her now. But I feel like that's how she wants to go out. So as a warrior who apparently has forgotten more ways to kill than most people remember or learn, that maybe that is a fitting death for her. But her reuniting with Quinn in movie 2 would be definitely an explosive experience as far as I'm concerned. I would love to see that. So but outside of that, I mean, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was really, really well written. I actually like the cinematography a lot on this. I like the music choices, and I like the characters. And if we get a sequel, I will definitely be on board watching it. But I want to know what you guys think, so please leave me a comment below and let me know. And if you would like to sign up for jury duty, hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to know who's next on the nerd bell, hit the notification bell. Until next time, I can't wait for you to approach the nerd. Bye, guys.
Thank you for watching my video. I really appreciate it, but hey, the party doesn't have to stop now. Click on one of these videos and keep it going.